In today's video, I want to discuss how the coronavirus is impacting the game of hockey worldwide. We've seen all kinds of cancellations and restrictions in place, so we're going to discuss how that's being impacted. And we also have a few other NHL news and notes to discuss as well, including some injuries and a signing as well. We'll get into all the latest coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, the coronavirus is kind of taking over the news cycle here. It's pretty much all you hear everywhere as you go. It's becoming a really big deal globally, pretty well everywhere as you look. But we've had a lot of hockey impacted because of everything going on with that. So today I wanted to touch on the virus, but I just want to talk about how it's impacting the sport of hockey. Now, the first thing that we saw was the Women's World Championships that were scheduled to take place not far from me in Nova Scotia, Canada, did in fact end up being canceled. Obviously, that makes a lot of sense due to the fact that it's an international tournament. There'd be players coming from all different parts of the world, and clearly that would not have been good. Obviously, right now, anything internationally when it comes to sporting events is likely going to be canceled just due to the virus being such a widespread issue around the world. But it's certainly impacted other parts of hockey as well. We saw an announcement today, which I'll give you some information from Twitter here from Darren Dreger, where he shared an article. Well, looks as though the German league, the DEL, is shutting down for the remainder of the season. So they're not going to be having a league championship this year because that's, they're just shutting down. As of right now, from what I can believe, I didn't read the article in full. It is in German. I'll warn you of that if you do want to find the article, but it certainly could have it translated. But anyways, they're shutting down for precaution. Some other information here from Twitter as well. Looks as though the KHL might be impacted. Moscow isn't putting a lot of limitations. They're putting a limitation on any sporting events that would have a crowd of larger than 5,000 fans, so that is likely going to have an impact on the KHL playoffs, but we don't know the full extent of how that's going to work. And of course, in North America, we obviously seen this situation in Santa Clara County in California, where they've put a ban on larger sporting events as well, so that's going to impact the San Jose Sharks. That ban, I believe, is for the next 2 or 3 weeks. And during that time span, the Sharks do have 3 home games. Now, they're currently on a road trip, so they're not impacted immediately. They do have some time to figure things out, but they're not going to be able to have games in their home arena at SAP Center, at least not with an NHL crowd. They very well could decide to play with an empty arena. That is a remote possibility for sure. We'll have to wait for further information from the Sharks and the NHL to make that decision. They could also look at playing their games at a neutral site. They could end up canceling the games and rescheduling them as well for later into the season. Of course, there's not a lot of time left, though, so that's certainly going to play a role with how they decide to go about this, because there's not going to be a ton of time with available dates and, of course, the teams that they're supposed to be playing as well to make that option available. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what they do here, but certainly playing on a neutral site, rescheduling, or playing into an empty arena appear to be the main 3 options that are being considered. I mean, there's been numerous NHL players interviewed asking what their thoughts were on playing in front of an empty arena. There seem to be, a bit of a variety of opinions out there, but ultimately they need to do what's best. Clearly, this virus is extremely contagious and is spreading like wildfire. So they need to do whatever is best to contain it for the mass majority of people in certain locations. Now, depending on how the virus spreads, it very well could have further impact on other NHL cities, which could impact the NHL playoffs. Hopefully nothing gets to the point that we're seeing anything completely canceled or anything like that, because as a hockey fan, that would be very unfortunate. But at the same time, I guess we all have to understand that these things, sometimes there's more important things than just the sport, obviously. So we'll have to see here, but it's pretty much everywhere as you turn on the internet, the TV, you go anywhere, it's just this coronavirus central. It's become a very big deal internationally here. So I guess we'll have to see how much further impact it has on the sport, but right now, certainly all kinds of events being canceled around the world. Now, as I said, in other NHL-related news, the Toronto Maple Leafs are expected to get defenseman Morgan Rielly back for tonight's contest with the Tampa Bay Lightning. Rielly's been out for some time. Their decor has been pretty battered and bruised up. They recently got Cody Ceci back, and now Rielly returns. So just have to wait for Jake Muzzin, who is expected to be, sometime before the playoffs get underway. Not quite clear exactly the time frames for Muzzin to return, but certainly getting Rielly, who really is a major offensive catalyst for the Leafs, will certainly be a big role. We saw the Panthers win the few games that they've had in hand to make that race suddenly very interesting. We now only have a 1-point gap between the Leafs and the Panthers for the final playoff spot. And if you look at their schedules right now, it looks as though the Maple Leafs probably have a tougher schedule for the next little while. So they're certainly going to need Rielly to contribute offensively and to really get their act together to make sure they're not in danger of missing the playoffs. Now, in other news, we do have Troy Brouwer of the St. Louis Blues on the waiver wire as well. Now, of course, many of you might be questioning why the waiver wire would still be in play right now. And even though rosters are set technically for playoff action, any teams that are out of the playoffs could look to pick him up if they wanted to consider bringing him on to fill a roster spot for the remainder of the year, or if they wanted to consider re-signing him for next year or anything like that. Also was going to allow the St. Louis the option of sending him down to their minor league affiliate as well. But that is some waiver wire news here for today. Doubtful he gets claimed. More than likely just creates them to have the option to send him down to the minors for the time being. The Toronto Maple Leafs have also signed 2019 4th-round pick Mikael Abramoff to his entry-level contract. That will kick in next season. Abramoff is having an exceptional year with Victoriaville in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So for a 4th-round pick to develop that quickly, really accelerate his growth and development this year was a big plus, which ultimately led to him getting signed. So another great prospect here in the system as well for the Maple Leafs. Now, there has been some rumblings about some college free agent signings and some other players that are likely going to be signed here shortly. I do have a separate dedicated video coming out shortly, strictly focused on college signings and the top college players that very well will be free agents and be signed here shortly as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll discuss all the college signings in a separate video. But that is all for today. So of course, as always, we'll know your thoughts and opinions, especially on the effects of the coronavirus and how it's affecting the sport of hockey around the world. I'd love to know what your thoughts are and what the NHL should do. Should they end up playing in empty arenas? Should they cancel games? What are your thoughts? We'll continue the conversation in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.